Exactly.
This is a question for Pastor Johnson. What practical role does prayer have for the ministries of the church? Does prayer really make a difference? Can you give us an example or two, perhaps, how you know prayer makes a difference?
Well, probably all of us here, our minds go back to something we've experienced, something we've heard. But I think prayer is probably the greatest work of the church. And everything that we do ought to be built on the foundation of prayer. And I'll just be a little honest with this congregation here tonight, and I think Pastor Meyer would agree as well. I could probably crunkle up that piece of paper and throw it out there and hit someone who can either play the piano, who can sing, who can do something. I mean, we are so full of talent. But really, let's be honest, are we a church that prays, or are we a praying church? And I think there's a fundamental difference. So all of our ministries, whatever we do, We Care, our Sunday schools, our teen church, our Sunday morning services, Sunday night service, everything ought to be built on the foundation of prayer. Prayer does make a difference. And I could give illustrations, I could give examples. I won't do that because, too many come to mind, really. And I'm sure that many of you could stand tonight as well and share from your own experience what prayer has done. There's a little book that I've got a lot of benefit from called A House of Prayer. My House Shall Be a House of Prayer book. And in this book, it explains the difference between a church that prays and a church that's devoted to prayer. A church that prays about what it does, but a church that's devoted to prayer does things by prayer. A church that prays fits prayer in, but a church devoted to prayer gives prayer a priority. A church that prays when there's problems, but a church devoted to prayer prays when there are opportunities. And what we have tonight is an opportunity. And I think one fundamental difference between a church that prays and a church devoted to prayer, a church that prays sees its members as its parish, but a church devoted to prayer sees the world as its parish. And that's something that Wesley said, and we're Wesleyan in that sense, at least, that we see the world as our parish, and that before I knock on a door, you better believe I'm going to be spending time in prayer, on my knees, asking God to empower me. I'll just be honest, there's a big difference between this guy and me. Something like, he thrives on stuff like this. He is gifted to, he never meets a stranger. I've got to pick myself up by the collar and make myself knock on a door, because that's not a strength of mine, I feel. And so you better believe that in my life there's going to be prayer empowering me to do this ministry.
Off that question, in just a minute, James, I'm going to come back to you and ask you about the story about Rudy. But hold that. And let's go to Pastor Mallory. And let me ask you this question. Is this ministry, it's a prayer ministry, but is this something that everyone can get involved in?
Oh, most definitely.
How so?
Well, one thing is, as has already been mentioned, all of us have different gifts, different talents. Some people don't have the personality to go up and knock on a door, but you might meet somebody in Marsh Supermarket that you can talk to more freely than you can if you knock on a door. There are some of you that are not able to get out and knock on doors, but you can pray, and you can pray for those that are. In fact, it'd be wonderful if we had every day we just set a little bit of time aside and prayed for those that are working door to door in this ministry. And also then you would take these cards and pray over that ministry. And then there's some of you that could take care of some book work or secretarial work that needs to be done. All these things work together. So it takes, and the thing, Brother David, that bothers me sometimes is that we look at each other and we say, well, that person isn't knocking on a door. They're not interested. That is what the devil does to try to destroy what's being done. It's not, we're not interested. We all have a part to play, and what we just need to do is be willing to do that.
Sure. Off of that question, let's go to Sarah. Sarah, you're a mother with 4 young children. Can a mother with 4 young children actually get involved in something like this?
Yeah, I think it's really neat. Like, a couple of our kids went with David this week, and I think they got to hand out the magnet, and they thought that was pretty cool to get to hand out the magnet. But the biggest thing is it's training them. You all know who grew up in this church and rode the buses. You are are powerful people in outreach because you grew up with it. And so just letting kids tag along is cool. And when we've done even a kindness outreach kind of thing, they just get to knock on the door, or they get to hand them something, or they just stand there and listen. I think kids are disarm people. If they see somebody walk up with a couple of kids with them, they're going to think, well, that's unique. And I think that's a little bit, it's a connector. Also, the prayer aspect is really, it's just one of the most powerful aspects for our family, is that we are praying for, when the prayer requests start coming in, and all of a sudden we're praying for a lady who is having lung problems, and we're praying for the one whose 4 kids are in public school, and the kids are part of that. And so, I mean, I think that's just training them right from the very beginning.
One of the things that yesterday, as I was going down this street, not only were my kids with me, but I was able to tell Jesse, who lives down here on Blinn Street, I was able to tell him that every night at about 8:30, my kids will be praying for him. Because we pray for all of our neighbors that we know by name. We pray for them by name. And so your kids not only may be able to go out with you or with maybe Pastor Johnson, but they can pray as well. And that comes back to you as parents and making sure that you're setting a time. And even if it's 2 minutes, you can probably list, you probably only need a minute to list the names in prayer of your neighbors. Good. All right, let's continue. What is the time commitment, Dad? What is the time commitment for being a reaper? This is a question for you, Dad.
Yesterday, like I said, yesterday I spent 40 minutes and have to show 4 prayer requests. And that 2 of those houses were Spanish speaking, so I couldn't talk to them. Then I did have one house knocked on the door. They were home, but they wouldn't come to the door. And then 2 others that was not home. So I'm keeping that block card because I'm going to go back and do the ones that were not home. I filled out a gap card for the 2 Spanish speaking ones, and they'll go in the rack out there so somebody can pick them up that speak Spanish. But 30 minutes, I mean, easy. I did 4 blocks in 30 minutes.
Okay, good.
So very minimal.
So you might be able to do a block in 10 or 15 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, because I can almost guarantee you not everybody's going to be home. You're going to probably be about 50%.
Sure.
So you're not going to get everybody home at the first time.
All right, I want real fast answers, 5-second answers on these, all right? James, what should I do if a no solicitation sign is posted?
Okay, first of all, we're not soliciting. You're not selling them something, so they can't label you as a solicitor. You're there to pray for them, and you're going to give them something.
So you can still knock on the door?
You can still knock on the door.
Okay. Oh, Dad, what if there's a dog?
Run. No. If you feel threatened by any kind of an animal, just fill out a gap card and stick it over there, stick it out here where the box is for gap cards, let somebody else deal with it.
All right, so
Tell David Fry he loves the ones with dogs.
Right. We don't have anything on the PowerPoint of the gap card, but the gap card has several things on the several
Right.
notes on the bottom. You can check one, dog or no.
It says that there's actually, you just put the address on it and the reason. It has some boxes you can check off. Address appears to be vacant, why you didn't do it, or there's no trespassing sign. Did not feel safe because of an animal or a Spanish-speaking address. Sign your name and date and just stick it out there. Somebody else will get it.
All right, so those of you that love dogs, you can get all my dog gap cards. All right, or I'll pass my Spanish-speaking cards to James. All right, so if they don't speak English, if I don't speak Spanish, they don't speak English, I can fill out a gap card. All right, or I can learn Spanish.